Hey, good morning, everybody. You know what? It just occurred to me that radio's playing in the background. I hope it's not too much of a distraction. Anyhow, I've got a new little project I'm starting, and this is just a personal project. I'm working on my own house. I've cut an opening in the wall between my living room and dining area off the kitchen. It's not a load-bearing wall, so I didn't have to get too carried away with reframing or putting heavy-duty headers or anything in the wall. So later on in the video, you'll see where I have got the rough opening finished and ready to go. But I wanted to show you is what I'm making and how I'm going to be finishing out this opening. I found a local vendor. Here, let me turn the camera around. I found a local sawmill operator who has a whole barn full of beautiful hardwoods of many different species. He's got all your standard picks like your red and white oaks, your poplar, cherry, maple, things like that. But what he's got here is some nice, beautiful, clear ash. And I was able to get it's a full 1.1/8 thick rough sawn material. And so I'm going to use this material. I've already ripped it to width. And I'm going to use this for the jambs and for the casing on one side. I probably rip it down to maybe a 4 or 5 inch width casing, butt jointed, nothing fancy. And I've actually got a special treatment I'm going to do to this opening later. I'm just going to leave that as a surprise for the end of the video. In the meantime, I'm just showing you a quick setup I've got with my radial arm saw. I've got the blade set to height. What I'm going to do in order to make the jambs, I'm going to pre-assemble it instead of putting it in piece by piece. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a dado top and bottom of each side jamb, and then have a shouldered tenon on the top and bottom jambs in order to be able to just, once I fasten it, keep the material from moving around and keep it at a nice tight joint there at the corners of the jambs. So let's walk through this real quick and show you how I do it. Okay, so you can see here I've cut a dado about a 1/2 inch deep into an 1.1/8 board, so it's not quite halfway through the width of it. And so I will do the same thing on each end of my side jambs, and then I'm going to cut a corresponding shoulder into the bottom and top jambs that will fit into here, and will end up the back side of it being flush with the end of the jamb. Let me show you here in a few minutes. Okay, so here you see my 2 side jambs with the dados cut, and here you have the top jamb with the shoulder cut on each end. You'll notice if you look closely that I did not take the time to get out my dado blade because it was just a few small cuts I made here. And so because the radial arm saw blade has your standard opposing angle cutting teeth, it leaves those V-shaped grooves in the bottom of the cut. So I'll take just a minute with a hand chisel, just clean that up a little bit, and then dry fit the joint. Okay, so you can see my joint here, where on this piece I cut the dado, and on this piece I cut kind of like a shouldered tenon to drop into there. I've checked it with a square. In fact, let me just show it to you. Grab my square. This joint reads square in both directions. Okay, so 1 successful joint out of 4 of them. Going to repeat this process 3 times. Actually 2 times on the head, and on the sill I'm going to be doing a standard window sill with ears on one side of it, so that one will look slightly different, but the principle is still the same. One last thing to show you before I go ahead and do the rest of the cutting and assembling is that my intent is to glue and screw these joints together just to assure that it'll be a nice solid long-term joint that won't pull apart and that will just keep it each piece square and in line with each other, and hopefully avoid future tendencies to want to cup or split, as any wood may want to do over time. Okay, what am I doing here? Well, I could take the time and dig out my joiner, which I haven't gotten out in a while and probably needs to be tuned up and everything. Or I can do something I've seen done before, and I'm just going to try my hand at it. And that is, when you want to mate two boards together, you essentially have to joint the edges to make a match. So what I've done is these are just dry fit against each other and clamped in place. I'm going to set up a straight edge and run a saw right down the joint between these two boards. And hopefully the saw kerf from the single pass will be enough to get these, well, a lot tighter than it is right now. And if so, well, good deal. If not, I can always get out the joiner. Let's give it a shot. Okay, so here we have our two boards clamped in position, and also a 6-foot level being used as a straight edge to ride the base of my skill saw against. Now, again, you've heard this in past videos. Are there better ways to do this? Absolutely. Is this a way that will work and will work well, using more common tools available to most of us? Absolutely. We're going to give this a shot and we're going to see how it goes. Do I have more expensive tools I could use to do this? Absolutely. Again, this is as much just to demonstrate and to experiment as it is anything else. So let me make a quick pass here and take a look at the result. Okay, here's the saw kerf left by a single pass with my skill saw running against this 6-foot level as a straight edge. Let me pull the two clamps off the left side here and push the boards together and see what we got. Okay, so the shadow line you're seeing there is because they are not lining up elevation-wise. There's a little bit of up and down in the boards. But when you line them up flush, I gotta tell you, I'm pretty happy with how this joint looks. I'm gonna do this one more pass. Do the same thing over again, which should take care of this one little gap at the end where the kerf didn't quite cover it. That's actually going to get cut off anyways, lengthwise. But just for the sake of doing it, I'm going to do it. I'm pretty happy with the results, though. I think this is going to work.